Welcome. So last time we worked on the inventory and we now have everything updating. So as you can see, when we add stuff to the inventory, the slots gets updated. If we remove stuff from it, we can see all the numbers are updating. But when deleting an item, like for example, I'm trying to remove this last item, it still remains. Even though I am indeed removing it, it's just the visual is not getting updated. And this is due because of this line here. So here's the issue. In the fast array, we have this pre-replicated remove, which is called right before an item is actually removed. So as we are about to remove the last item, this is called, and handle replication is called, which updates our UI. So the UI gets updated, the item is not yet removed, so we still see it there, and then right after the UI gets updated is when the item is actually removed. So that's why it remains there. So we got to fix this. And for that, instead of trying to update the UI from here, what I'm gonna do is alright, so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to just delete all of this. We don't need it. And let's go to the header file. In the header file here, I'm going to add a new U property. So let's do U property. And actually I'm going to specify not replicated because, well, this does not need to be replicated. Let's make a array of f inventory entry. And I'm gonna call this pending removed entries, let's say. So I'm going to store all the entries that are about to be deleted, because here we receive all the entries that are about to be deleted before they are actually deleted. So I'm just going to store them. So let's do pending entries. We can do reset or empty, I guess, the same thing. Well, I'm going to reset it to make sure that it's empty and clean, and then let's loop. Let's do an indexed removed indices, and let's do an if entry is valid at this indexed, then we add it to the pending list. Great. So all we are doing is just we receive the remove indices, we loop through it, making sure that they are valid, and then just storing them in this array of pending removed entries. Good. We somehow need to send this list to the UI when the item has actually been removed. So what we are going to do now is to override another function here. There is a function called post replicated receive, I believe, something like, no, receive like this, I think. Yes, and the parameters in post replicated receive parameters. Here we go, and call this parameters here. And let's implement this. Oh, and so this one is called every time a change happens. So after we add an item, this also gets called. Function will get called. After we remove an item, this function gets called. After we change something, this also gets called. And in order to actually use this, we need to down here in the template, we need to say with post replicated receive equals true. Alright, that's that. Alright, so now in here, I'm gonna first have to check for the inventory component, make sure it's valid. Then I'm gonna check the list of pending entries and do a num just to use greater than 0 to make sure we do have some entries that are pending to be sent. And then we can finally just send everything to the handle remove, except that the handle remove right now it expects an array of indices, so we need to change that. So let's go to the inventory component, find the handle replication remove. Just going to change this, so let's remove this and change it to a array of f inventory entry removed entries. All right, let's change. Okay, let me just copy this and change it here also. Paste that here. Great. So now let's go back. Okay, now pass in the pending removed entries. Now, after we've sent all the entries so that the UI can be updated, we can then take the list and reset it again. So we empty the list again. And that should be it for now here. Yeah, we can close that now. All right, now back to the inventory component. And one thing I'm gonna do is, as you can see, is the squiggle underneath this thing. It's just complaining that this is a public function that is in a protected section. So let me just cut this and move that up here. There we go. Now it stops complaining. Okay, so here, what are we going to do here? I'm going to, I guess, delete all of this. We don't need that. And also, let's get rid of all these, all the comments. Don't think we'll need them anymore. Let me just remove all of this. Here too, a bunch of comments everywhere. It's just going to pollute our log, so I'm just gonna remove them. Is there more? Yeah, all of this not needed anymore. We know that everything is working indeed. All right, so I got rid of all of that. So now back to where I was here. Handle replication remove. Okay, so I'm going to loop over the entries. So let's do an F. So loop over all the removed entries that we've just received. Make sure that they are valid. If not, we just skip them and go to the next one. And if they are valid, then we can just do a find or add and add them to the list. So entry.container_id and add unique. There we go. So if they're valid, we just add them to this map here. And then right after, we just loop over the map and broadcast every changes. Easy. I think that should be it. So let's try and compile and see what happens. All right, so let's have a look. Now if I press play, open my inventory, add a couple of potions, and then I start removing them. So everything is working. And why would it work on the first try? All right, let's figure out what's going on. Alright, I just saw what the error was here. I'm checking if the inventory component is valid and then returning. Well, it's missing the exclamation mark here to say if it's not valid, then return. Hopefully that's the only mistake. So let's try and compile this again. So add this here. And also, I noticed this, so we could actually make the inventory component here not replicated. Wait, hold up. All right, so we can add this here because this also doesn't need to be replicated. This is hopefully this is the only change needed. So let's see. All right, so now if I press play again and open the inventory, add some potions and then remove them. Hey, that works. Nice. Great. All right. Nice. So that was the error that I made. And you can also do this. It's just not important, but might as well. All right. So what should we work on next? I guess we should work on moving an item from one slot to another slot, because that will be useful. Then next we can work on actually being able to click on an item and drag it around and then dropping it in another slot in the UI and stuff. So let's work on moving an item then. So I'm just going to close this and go to my inventory component here. So we have functions to add an item, to remove an item. So now we need functions to move an item. So I'm just going to move item here, yes. And we need a void request move item. And that's going to take it's just like here, we have a f remove item request, and here we have a f add item request. We need another request to move an item. So let's go to types request here. Going to be very similar to what we already have. So for example, here for remove, we have a struct of f remove item request, which has a container, a slot, and a quantity. So the quantity to be removed, the slot in which the item is, and in what container. And then we have a remove item result, which can be successful, partially successful, or failed. and we have a response to after we've done removing the item. So we could fail, and this is the amount that we requested to be removed, the amount that we actually removed, and all that blah blah blah. So we need these three struct, to actually 2 structs and 1 enum. So we need the same thing for move item. So I'm gonna make a new uStruct, make it here, make it blueprint type, and call it fMoveItemRequest. Great. And now let's add a U property to it. I'm gonna add a container so that we know in what container we are operating in when trying to move the item. I'm going to add another U property. This one is going to be an int32 from slot indexed. Let's put that to index none. So when we are moving an item, we need to know in what slot was it in. So if we're trying to move it from slot 0 to slot 5, for example, so we need to keep track of where it's from and where it's going to. So this is from, so where are we taking this item from? And you know what? I'm actually going to track this also. So let's do from container ID, because we want to be able to support cross-container move or transfer. So let's say you want to drag something from your player inventory into your equipment slot, for example. So we need to know, okay, where is this item coming from? So it's coming from the player inventory, and where is it going to? And from what slot it was in, and in what slot is it going to? So we need all these informations. All right, let's do that. So I'm gonna do another gameplay tag and do a to container ID. So from container and to container. So from this container to this container. And another U property here for an int32 to slot indexed. So from this slot to this slot. Okay, and I think that's all we need to take care of. Oh, and also there's a typo here, type. There we go. Next thing we'll need is a enum, just like we did before. So an enum, make the enum blueprint type. The name is going to be, let me make some lines here. All right, the name is going to be, let's do eMoveItemResult. And the result of trying to move an item could be moved. So the item was successfully moved. Could be merged. So we merge the item together. So let's say you have a stack of 5 potion and you have another stack of 2 potion. And you take them, whichever one, and then you drag it and drop it on the other one. We want to merge the item together. So now we have a stack of 7 potion, right? So that could be a possibility. So we could move the item if we are trying to move an item from a slot to an empty slot. That could be a move. A merged, a swap. So if you're trying to move, let's say, a potion onto a, I don't know, a weapon, we can't merge together, so we'll just swap them instead. The last one could be failed. So we could move, merge, or swap. And the last one is another uStruct. So struct fMoveItemResponse, indeed, a generated body. And this one will add, do a eMoveItemResult, call this result. It's going to be an eMoveItemResult, and the result by default is going to be failed. Another U property, a tag from container ID, so we can keep track of that. We'll keep track also of the from index, just like we did up there, and same thing here for the to container and the to indexed. It seems correct. Why is this one complaining? What did I do here? Let's see, where's my enum? Yeah, I'm missing class here. There we go. Do we need more stuff here? Let me think. No, I think that should be fine. Yeah. Alright, just get rid of this. Alright, so let's close this for now. And back to here in the inventory component. So let's make a const fMoveItemRequest. Call this there just a request. Then we'll need a U function for a server call. So server reliable server request move item. Yep. Then we need another function. It's going to be a bool try move item authority const f. So move item request, and a response, out response. Great. What else? I think that's all we need for now. So let's just implement all of these. All right. Now these functions are going to be very similar to what we already have. So just like here, where we just checked if we were on the server. If we were on the server, we just call try move remove item directly, then return. Then if we were not on the server, and so we are on the client, we just call the server request, which then is going to call the try remove item. So we are going to do something very similar here. So let's start with just like there, we just checked the get owner authority to make sure we on the server. If we are, we need a response because the try move item returns a response, so we need something to store it, otherwise it's going to complain. And then if we did that, we can just return we were on the server. Now if we are not on the server, this is not going to run, it's going to skip to the server call here. Great. And then same thing here, we just need a f move item response because we need to store the response that's coming, and we can just call the try move item authority. Great. And now the actual function that's doing all the work. Now just like here, we made a out response by default. We'll need pretty much the same thing here. So let's do a out response dot result equals move item failed out response a from container ID request from container ID, another out response for a from slot indexed, a out response again, this one to container request again, and another one for to slot. Right. So now we have a default response that if anything wrong happens, this is what's going to be returned. Next, what did we do here? We were doing a bunch of checks to make sure we were on the server and checking if everything is correct. So let's do the same thing here. So I'm going to do a get owner and get owner authority. So just make sure we are on the server because only the server can do this operation. Let's do a request from container that is valid. So let's make sure we have a valid container. Same thing here. So request to container. Make sure this one is valid too. And a request for the from slot indexed. Making sure this is valid to slot indexed, also making sure they are valid. And let's also make sure, now I'm gonna do a request from container. So if my container, if the container that the item is coming from is the same as the container that the item is going to, so that's the first check. So are we moving, oh wait, that's wrong here, from container. So for example, are we moving the item from the player inventory to the player inventory? But we're going to do an and request from slot indexed is equal to slot indexed. So if we are moving the item from the same container, so we are moving something in the player inventory, let's say, we are moving it from one slot 0 and we are dropping it into slot 0 again. We don't want to do anything, there's nothing to do, we just moved an item into the same slot that it was already in, so there's nothing to do. So that's the check. Now what else do I need? Let's do a const int 32 from container max slots, get container max slots, and then give the request from. Let's do the same thing here. Why am I doing this? Because if we are trying to move something to another container, let's say, we need to make sure that there's enough space, right? We need to know, let's say there's 10 slot in the container that we are trying to move this item to, and they're all full already. And we are trying to add this new item, so there's not no space anymore. There's not an 11th slot for us to put the item in. So we need to track this also to make sure there is space indeed. And let's just put some checks here just to make sure that we indeed got some correct values for the max slot, because if there are 0, then there's some error somewhere. What can we do next? Next we could check the slot we are trying to put that in. So for example, if we try to move an item from let's say slot 10 in our player inventory, and then we somehow drag it to a slot, this can't really happen, I guess, with a mouse movement, but if we are doing it by code, if you're trying to move something by code, we could accidentally try to move an item from, so let's say slot 10 into a different into a different container that only has, let's say, five slots, and we try to move the item from slot 10 to slot 10 in the other container, and the other container doesn't have a slot 10. So that could be an error. Now, with the UI, I don't think that's something that could happen, but again, by code it could. So let's just be safe and add a from slot indexed here, from container max slot. So the first check that I'm doing here is just making sure that the container has 10 slots, so from slot 0 to 9. Now, when we request to move an item, it should be within that range. It should be within 0 and 9, because otherwise there's some errors happening. So we don't want to do anything in that case. So I'm just going to do that for here also. Yep, that's it. What else? Let's do, are we done with all the checks? Is that all the checks we want? I'm thinking, what did I do in my previous thing? I think we also need to check the entry. So let's do inventory entry. From entry, let's do find entry. Oh wait, what am I doing? Find entry at slot request dot from container and request dot from indexed. If not entry, return. So if you're dragging an item, well, we need to make sure that we indeed have an item, right? So that's all I'm doing here, just getting the entry that we are dragging around, the entry that we are trying to move. So just getting that. Another thing we could need is the let's do an int32 item max stack size. So do I have, yes, I do have a function for that. Is that what from entry and do item tag. There we go. So we need to know the max stack size of the item, because if we are dropping it on another item, let's say we have a stack of 5 potion, when we are dropping it on a stack of 10 potion that is already maxed out, well, we don't want to merge them together because the stack is already full. So we need to track that also. And now let's have a look at what we were doing before. Did all the checks, yeah, I think we can now do the operation in the mutator now. Yeah, yep. So mutator move item. All right, so that's next, which means we need to go to the mutator here and add a move item function. Put that together. All right, so we need an f move item that is going to return, so we know what happened. I call it just move item. It's going to take in an f inventory array because it needs the inventory to perform this moves function. A const we need a f gameplay tag. From container ID, we'll need a const int32 from lot indexed. We'll need a const f gameplay tag 42 container ID and a const int32 to slot indexed. Oh, and also the const int32 item max stack size. Alright, and now we can implement this. Okay, alright, and this is also going to be very similar to what we've already done before. Let me refresh my memory. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is to make a default response. So let's move item response, and let's do response result e move item results failed. Why is this not e moved? It's move item result. There we go. Response dot from container ID. All right. So that's the default response. And next, let's do a bunch of checks. So we'll do reject invalid move request. So let's do an if the from container is not valid and blah blah blah. So that's the basics checks, just to make sure everything is correct before we actually do the operation. And let's add another check here just to be sure. Gonna do container ID to container ID from slot indexed is equal to slot index, this one. So we've done a similar check before, but just to be sure, all I'm doing is making sure that we are not moving an item from the same container, so from player inventory, let's say, to the player inventory, taking it from slot 0 and dropping it in slot 0 again. Because there's no point in doing anything if we are just dragging and dropping an item on the same slot that it was already in. So that's that. All right. Now we should get the entry. So whatever item we are moving around, we need to get that entry. So to do that, I'm gonna do a const from index. Let's call this use my find entry by slot thingy, passing in the inventory from container and from indexed. Make sure that this is valid. We got indeed a valid indexed, and now we can do the inventory from entry equals this. Now we have the entry. Okay. So now we have the actual item that we are moving around. Const int 32. I'm gonna do to index equals same thing here. Just getting where we are dropping this item. Let's add a comment here to move to empty slot. So if to indexed is a indexed none, meaning that we are dropping the item on an empty slot, all right? If there's nothing in it, we can just move the item. So to move the item, I'm just going to do from container, or actually from entry, container ID is now equal to the to container ID. So we swap them. So now we change the container ID to the to container ID. So where we want it to go. Same thing with the slot. We change it to the to slot indexed, and that's it. We've moved the item. Now let's build the response. Response.result is going to be a move. So we've moved the item as the other slot was empty. So we just moved it. Response dot what else? Wait, let me think. No, we don't need to do anything. Don't think so. Let's do for now. Let's do a inventory dot mark item dirty from entry. Yep, and then return response. Yeah, that's all we need right now. So if the slot that we are moving the item into is empty, we can just take the entry, change its container to the one we are moving it to, and the slot also, and then mark dirty so it can replicate. Great. So that if the slot was empty. Now what if it was not empty? So let's do an if inventory entry to entry and try to get so now, since if we get past this if, meaning that the index is not none, then we know that we have an item, so we try to get this item. Otherwise, we'll just do the move and return, so everything stops here. But if we have an item in that slot, then this is going to be skipped, and we are going to go to here. Okay, so what do we want to do? So first, let's comment this and do merge with same item if destination as room. That's the first thing I want to do. It is that, and also we could do otherwise swap the to queue by slot. Right, so if we move an item and the slot that we are trying to move it into is empty, we just move the item there. If the slot is not empty now, if the item is the same, meaning that if we are trying to drop a potion on another potion and there's room in there, then we can stack them together. And if the stack maybe is full, so we are trying to drop a stack of 10 potion on another stack of 10, both stacks are full, we can't really merge them together, we can just swap them. Or if we are trying to move a potion on a weapon or something, we can just swap them because we can't merge them together. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So let's do that. So let's do the merge. So we'll do from entry.item tag, get the item tag. So for now it's potion, and to entry item tag also, compare them together. Are they the same? Is it the same item? To entry.quantity is less than item max stack, making sure that we indeed have room in there, that we can stack it. Alright, so let's do const 32 base left equals item max stack minus 2 entry quantity. So that's the amount of space left. And let's do a const int 32 transfer quantity. Quantity is, we do an fmath to simplify things. Min space left from entry.quantity. There we go. Alright, so that's the transfer. So we've transferred everything from one to the other. Let's do if transfer is quantity is less than 0. So after doing the transfer, so after taking our stack of potion and dropping it on the other stack of potion, if we did not move anything, if we did not transfer anything, then we can just return. Yeah, because nothing happened. We were not able to somehow transfer them. Yes, I think that makes sense here. Let's do to entry.quantity equal transfer quantity, and from entry quantity minus equal transfer quantity. Okay, so we take the to entry, so meaning the item, so we take the to entry, so where we are dropping the item, and we are dropping whatever amount of transfer quantity is inside of it. And we take from entry, so let's say we have a stack of 10 potion and we are dropping it on another stack of 5 potion. So we take 5 potion and we transfer it to the stack of 5. So we take 5 from the 10, my bad. So I hope this makes sense, because it's kind of hard to explain, but actually it's not very hard to explain, it's very simple. So we have a stack of 10, a stack of 5. We are taking the 10 and putting it on the stack of 5. So only 5 of the 10 can go in there. So this is what we're doing here, and then what is remaining in our previous stack of 10 is only 5, right? Because we've transferred 5 to the other one. Hopefully that's clear. I don't know how else I can explain this, but yeah. Let's do response.result equals move item result to merge. We've merged the item together. Response, or yeah, we merged it together. And then we can just mark item dirty to entry. So let's do a from entry quantity is less than 0. So what happened if after we are done with this, so let's say we had 2 stacks of 5 potion, we drag one on top of the other. So now we have one single stack of 10, right? So our from entry, which was initially a stack of 5, that has now merged to the other one, its quantity is now 0, right? So we took 5, put it on another stack of 5. So now our 5 has gone into the other stack. So what we need to do is inventory.entries.remove at not to, but from indexed. We need to remove that entry because now it's empty. There is no more item in it. Its quantity is now at 0. So we remove that. And we'll do inventory.mark dirty, because we are removing an item from the inventory. We are removing an entry. So emptying a slot, we need to make the whole array replicate. Else we'll do inventory mark item dirty from entry. All right, if it's not completely empty, if it has not been emptied completely, then we just make it, we replicate it to show the new amount. That makes sense. And then let's try, and then we can return. Yeah, does that make sense? Did I miss anything? Don't think so. So 2 entry being replicated here, and then this one gets replicated here. Otherwise, we're replicating the array. Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right. Let's go to the otherwise swap the 2. Okay, swapping the stuff. I think that's a bit more straightforward. So we'll do a const gameplay tag. We need some buffers to do the swap. So I'll do old from container ID, from entry dot container ID, and a const int for old slot. Okay, then we just take the from entry dot container, putting it in the new one. Same for the slot, putting it in the new one. Now we can do the to entry dot container, putting it into the other one, and same for this. So we are swapping them. So taking one that was, let's say, in slot 0, putting it in slot 5, and taking the other one that was in slot 5, putting it in slot 0. And it's fairly easy to understand, hopefully. Let's build some response. So let's do result dot. This one is going to be a swap. Move item swapped. All right, so we swapped the item. Now I'm going to do a mark. We don't need to replicate the whole inventory now, so just the from entry needs to replicate, and the mark item dirty to entry. All right. Yep, and then just return. Great. Well, that was something. I feel like my brain is melting. Seems correct, but you never know. Well, we'll find out real soon if there's any bugs or not. Yep, so for now, we'll leave it at that. Okay, so I think we are done here. So I'm just gonna close this and go here now. Alright. So instead of this line, we'll do a const f move item response, because that's what the operation will return. Take the response equal to the inventory mutator move item, and passing in the inventory first, then the request dot from container, request dot from slot indexed, the request dot to container, the request dot to slot indexed, and finally the item max stack size. Yep, let's get the out response. So now let's analyze the result that we got back. So from this operation, so now we have a response from it. We can just do out response dot result. Okay, or if it was successful, so we'll do if it did not fail. So if the whole operation did not fail, so we tried to move an item and it did not fail, we'll create a map of f gameplay tag t array of int 32s, call it changed slot by container. So everything that was affected by this move, we are going to store in here. Do change slot by container dot find or add request dot from container ID, and add unique request dot from slot indexed. Then the same thing again here for find or add request, yeah, for the to container and to slot indexed. And then we can loop, so just do a t pair f gameplay, there we go, loop over everything and do a broadcast. So, and do an odd slot change dot broadcast, sending in the pair dot key and pair dot value. So we broadcast this to the UI so it can do the updates. Yep, and do a return out result response here. So remember, this is a bool, so we need to return something here. So what we're going to return is to, if the operation failed, we're going to return false, and if it didn't fail, we are going to return true. So just use the result for it. Here we go. So if the result is not failed, it's true. If the result was indeed failed, then this is going to return false. Easy. All right. that it? So yeah, so we've created a bunch of operations, so request and all that. I think that's it. I think it's the moment of truth, and see if we have a bunch of errors now. Let's compile. Okay, everything compiled, no errors so far, so that's good to see. So now I'm going to go to the third person blueprint and find the player controller. Let's go to the player controller. So here are my requests. So I have, when I press 1, I request to add one. When I press 2, I request to remove, which we are going to get rid of these, I guess, in the next one, because we are going to make sure that, because we are going to work on actually clicking on an item and moving it around, and then also we need to add the ability to pick up stuff, which will then add things to the inventory instead of us manually adding it like this. Yeah, anyway. Let me just change this to, so this that should be like this. So let me copy that, put that here. I'll move this down a bit. Oops. All right. So I need a request move item. Okay, and let's build that request. So if I click on that and make move request, now we can make a request. All right. So this is everything we can pass in the request. So from container, from where? So I'm going to move it from the player inventory to the player inventory, because so far that's all we have. So right there. From slot, I'm going to move it from slot 0 to slot 5. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so, and I'm gonna change the button here to 3. So when I press 3, whatever is in slot 0 will be moved to slot 5. Yep. So let's test this out. So I'm going to press play. We are on the client testing this. Open my inventory and add potions. So I'm adding, let's do 15 potion. Okay, now if I press 3, I expect this to jump to this slot here. Let's do it. Let's press 3. Ooh, okay. So it did jump, but this seems to have not been updated. If I press 3 again, nothing happens. So if I press 1 to add, if I add an item, it should go in there, yes. And then if I press it again, okay, now, okay, so what I understand is that this is actually empty. Yep, let's do that again. So I'll do this, start, I press 1, I have my 5 potion. Then if I press 3, it's gonna jump here, but the UI is not going to be updated. Yes. This is not getting updated to show that it's empty. Okay, so that's, oh yeah, true, it's here, not here, because this is slot 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. And then I press 3. Yeah, it does get swapped. Okay, so this is working correctly. So swapping an item works. Does merging an item work? So to test this, all I'm gonna do is add 5 potion, move it to here. I expect this to be empty now, so if I press 1 again, I'm adding 5 potion here. That's true, it's good, because this is empty and this, can't really test that. Alright, so let's try and fix that. So the thing we are trying to fix is this is not getting updated. Yeah, alright, let's go back to work. At least it seems like most of it is working. Alright, so now we have to find out why this is happening, and I know exactly why this is happening. Because, okay, so what's happening is we are moving the item. Okay, so I'm in my inventory mutator. Let's see, we were doing this operation here, which is move item, so move to empty slot. And we get the from entry here of a container, which is, in that case, was just moving from the player inventory to the player inventory, so nothing. We're not really changing anything here. And we are changing the slot here, so from slot 0 to slot 5. We return a result and we mark the TD from entry. I see what's happening. So when we mark the TD from entry and then we broadcast this change, yeah. Okay, so what's happening here is that we are doing here mock dirty the from entry. Now we have changed the from entry. Its slot is now slot 5. So when we are replicating it, we are telling the UI, hey, here update this slot, update this item in slot 5, right? But we never tell it to update slot 0, right? Because we moved it from slots, but we never told it to update slot 0 because we moved it from slot 0 to slot 5, right? We changed it here, and then we are telling it to update after we've done the change, which this entry is now in slot 5, so it's going to replicate and update the UI for slot 5 only. Okay, so that's the issue. So we need a fix for that. Now we could replicate 0 also, but that doesn't seem to be correct to me. The way I'm gonna solve this is in here in my try move item authority. We are still on the server. And we have access to the request which contains the from slot. All right, so, and this from slot is what we need to update. That was not getting updated. I want to give to the client actually. So what I'm gonna do here in the private, let's make a tmap of f gameplay tag key array int32. I'm gonna call this pending. Let's do client slot refreshes. Refresh. Let's do refresh. These are the slot that needs to be refreshed. Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna do this here, and I'm going to fill that up the request container here and the request from slot. Yes, let's do that. But also I need to send that to the client. So I'm gonna go here, do a U function, client reliable. Let's do void client. I'm gonna call this q slots changed const f gameplay tag container id const t array int32 slot indices. We are going to need another function. Let's call this one flush pending client. Whatever, the name is not important. So these are the slots. I'm going to use this function to tell the client. Let's create these. Let me go back up. Where is my try move here? Alright, so in here, let's call this function. So client q blah 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 change and pass in the key pair and key value. Okay. Alright, now we have this function that I can pass in the requested stuff here, because here I still have access to the request from and to slot indexed. Yeah. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So let's go to this one here. Okay, let's make sure that the container that is being passed in is valid and the slot indices are num not 0. Okay, so that's a simple check. Let's make a t array of int32s. I'm gonna call this pending slots. Then take my pending slot list, find or add container id, and let's do const int32 slot indexed indices. Let's do pending slot dot add this. All right, okay, so we are storing the containers if there's multiple and then just adding the slot to them. Cool. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. My brain is melting trying to figure this out. I ain't gonna lie. We'll see if that even works. I don't even know if this is gonna work, but we'll have to see. We need a flush. Okay, so what we'll do here is do pending refresh dot empty. So just the safety, so we don't have to run all of this for no reason. So if there's nothing pending to be refreshed, we just return Otherwise, let's do if fare.key.is valid. This one, fare.value.num. Continue. Broadcast. Yes. The client stores all the pending slots, and this function is in charge of actually calling the update at the correct time. So we need to call this flush only after. So after a move operation, we have all of these slots that are being stored, and then we need to flush them. Yes, I think yes, that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so now we need to flush the slot. I'm gonna go to the fast array here, in post replicate receive, because this one is called every time, so it's called after something is added, removed, changed. It's always getting called. And I'm gonna do inventory flush. All right, so if there's anything to flush, then it's going to flush it, flush all the slots. Yes. Let's also clear it here. So pending refreshes.empty. So after we are done flushing it, then we just empty this list. Okay, let me compile and test this out. I don't even know if it's gonna work or not, but it's worth a try. Otherwise, I'll have to find another way. Okay, so now we are in the engine. So let's test this out. So I am on the, I need to be on the client. Okay, moment of truth. So open the inventory, add something to it, and swap. Oh my god, oh, it worked. I can't believe it actually works. Oh my god, it works. Okay, let's do this and press it again. It swaps. Okay, that took me like, I don't know, I'm probably gonna edit this down, but that took me at least, what time is it? Like 40 minutes to an hour to figure this out. Okay, so this is working. All right, I feel exhausted. Yeah, so we got that working, and should I end it here? Let's do something else. Let's check the server, and if I add an item on the server, I don't see anything. Yep, I'm adding items, I don't see anything. If I try to swap, now I see, okay, swapping works. So if I add some items and then remove, nope, that doesn't work. If I try to remove them, if I swap, okay. So the client works, but the server doesn't get updated. All right, so that's not too hard to fix actually. Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard to fix. We can do that before we end. Might as well. So the reason it's not working for the server is that this post-replicated add is only called on the client, right? So the server does the add the item, and then it tell the client, okay, I've added an item. So then it calls this on the client, and the client calls this, which updates our UI. But the server never updates its UI because this is never called on the server, only on the client. So that's the issue, and I feel like that's an easy fix. We could even not fix it, because usually your server is not going to have a UI if you have a dedicated server, but you might be having a game where you're hosting on your machine, and you have a listen server set up, and you do want your UI to be updated on the server. So we'll fix it just in case. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the inventory mutator. All right, this is my add item. Actually, not here. Let's go to the request. Yep, let's go to the request. And I'm gonna go to the response. I want to also give back the slot that we updated. So let's add a new property here, and make it transient, whatever. T array of int32 slots to update. All right. So now when I add an item, it also is gonna pass out what slot the item was added into. I'm gonna do the same thing for the remove response and add this here, and the same for the move response. Let's add that in here too. Let's close this and go back to the mutator. So here is first pass, fill existing stack of the same item. I'm gonna go down here and add my response. So let's update the response dot slots to update dot add unique, and add in the entry dot slot indexed. All right. Oh, and I guess we can delete these logs not needed, right? So here too, there's another log, and there are more logs. Yes, there's logs everywhere, so don't need them anymore. If we do, we can just add them back, but I don't think I need them. Yeah, no more logs. Okay, cool. So yeah, where was I? Here, I'm going to add this slot that we just updated in here. This one is create a new stack in a free slot. So let's do the same thing. So here, I'm gonna add a new response. I'm gonna update the response. Update that add unique free slot index. That's the slot that we are using, right? So we are putting it in a free slot, and this free slot is this one. Good. And here we are removing an item. I see a bunch of responses here, so I'm just gonna add that here also. So response, yep, slot to update, except that this is wrong. I'm gonna do the request dot slot indexed. That needs to be updated. Let's go to the move. Okay, in move, we have move to empty slot. Okay, so right after this here, let's do response dot slot to update dot add unique, and from slot indexed, add another one. Nope. Slot to update dot add unique to slot indexed. Yep. The same thing here for where we are merging the item together. So actually, let me just copy this and paste it here. All right. And also here is where we are swapping the item. So I'm just gonna do the same thing here. Yep. So now we are storing the slot that we are modifying every time. Good. So now I can close this. Let's find the try add item, I guess. Yeah. So here in try add item authority, I'm going to add a, let's put a comment here. I'm gonna say notify the server to update the UI. Yeah. So now we can use the slot that we can use the slot to update from the response. So let's do response dot slot to update dot num. Let's check if there's any. If it's greater than 0, so we do have some. We'll do a onChange dot broadcast and do the request dot contain the response dot slot to update. Yep. I'm going to copy this. Let's go down to remove. So is it so try remove authority. Same thing here. Let's paste that here. So now it broadcasts. So now on the server, we are doing the broadcast on the server also. Great. And I don't think we need the same thing here. Yeah, we don't need that here because it's already been taken care of by this. So let's compile and check if this works. Yeah, I don't think we need it here. It's already been taken care of. Alright, so now I have it open the server and open the thingy here and add an item. Hey, it works. Okay, let's swap. Yep, it works. Add more items. Yep, remove. That works too. And swap these. Perfect. Alright, it works. Yeah, that one was easy. Okay, yeah, I think I'll stop here. Like, comment, subscribe. You'll find the next tutorial on my Patreon. If you want to support me, you can check that up there. But otherwise, it's gonna be on YouTube anyway in a week or so. Yeah, that's it for today. See you in the next one.